This is Paris, a city known for beauty, romance, and history. Millions of people visit every year just to see its streets, its lights, and of course, the Eiffel Tower. But what if I told you there was a time when none of this existed? No tower, no wide roads, no elegant city. In fact, most people today wouldn't even want to live there, because Paris was once completely different. Let's go back in time, hundreds of years ago, to a version of Paris that feels almost unrecognizable. The city was not open or bright. It was tight, crowded, and dark. The streets were narrow, so narrow that in some places, two people could barely walk side by side. Tall buildings stood very close together, leaning inward, almost touching each other from above. Because of this, sunlight struggled to reach the ground. Even during the day, many streets felt dim and shadowed. And when it rained, the situation became even worse. The roads turned into thick mud. Walking through the city became slow, messy, and exhausting. Life in medieval Paris was not comfortable. There was no electricity, no streetlights, no clean water system. People relied on wells or nearby rivers to get water, and even that water wasn't always safe. Inside homes, conditions were basic. Rooms were small, heating was limited, and most families lived together in tight spaces. But the biggest problem was the streets. There was no proper system to manage waste. So people did something shocking. They threw it outside. Yes, from windows directly into the streets below. Food waste, garbage, sometimes even worse. Over time, the streets became dirty, smelly, and unhealthy. But strangely, this was normal. This was daily life. Despite all these challenges, Paris was alive. The city was full of movement, full of noise, full of energy. Markets were everywhere. These markets were the center of life. Vendors stood behind wooden stalls, selling fruits, meat, clothes, tools, anything people needed. They shouted loudly, trying to attract customers. People pushed through the crowd, trying to buy, sell, or simply survive. Animals moved through the streets. Carts rolled slowly over uneven roads. Children ran between people. The air was filled with sounds, voices, footsteps, animals, movement. It was chaotic, but it was life. But behind all this activity, there was danger. Crime was common. Pickpockets waited in crowded areas. The narrow streets made it easy for thieves to escape. At night, things became even more dangerous. With no proper lighting, darkness covered the city, and people had to be careful where they went. But the biggest threat was disease. Because of poor sanitation, illness spread quickly. One sick person could affect many others. And in a crowded city like Paris, that was a serious problem. Another major danger was fire. Most buildings were made of wood. Roofs, walls, structures, everything could burn easily. And since buildings were so close together, fire could spread in seconds. A small flame could turn into a disaster. Entire streets could be destroyed. People had little time to react, little time to escape. And once the fire started, there was almost nothing they could do. By the early 1800s, Paris had reached a breaking point. The city was no longer functioning properly. It was overcrowded, unhealthy, and dangerously outdated. The problems had become too big to ignore. Leaders knew that if nothing changed, Paris would continue to suffer. But fixing the city wouldn't be easy, because the issue wasn't just one thing. It was everything. The streets, the buildings, the infrastructure, all of it needed to be reimagined. And so, a bold decision was made. Instead of slowly improving Paris, they would rebuild it. Under the rule of Napoleon III, a man named Baron Haussmann was given a powerful mission: transform Paris, not just repair it, but completely redesign it. What followed was one of the most dramatic urban transformations in history. Entire neighborhoods were destroyed. Thousands of buildings were demolished. Old streets, some centuries old, disappeared forever. At first, people were shocked. Many resisted the changes. But the plan moved forward. Slowly, the old Paris began to vanish. And in its place, a new city started to rise. Wide boulevards replaced narrow alleys. For the first time, sunlight could reach deep into the city. Fresh air could move freely. The feeling of space, something Paris had never truly had, was finally created. New buildings were constructed, stronger, cleaner, and more organized. Parks were added. Green spaces appeared. The city became healthier, more structured, more modern. It wasn't just a visual transformation. It changed how people lived, how they moved, how they experienced the city. Paris was no longer just surviving. It was evolving. Then came a moment that would define Paris forever. In 1889, for the World's Fair, a massive structure was built, made entirely of iron, standing taller than anything the city had ever seen. The Eiffel Tower. Today, it feels like it has always been there. But back then, it was controversial. Very controversial. Many people didn't see it as beautiful. They saw it as strange, unnatural, even ugly. Artists and writers protested against it. Some called it a mistake. Others said it ruined the beauty of Paris. There were even demands to remove it. Imagine that. The most famous landmark in Paris today was once hated by the people who lived there. But time has a way of changing how we see things. As years passed, people slowly began to accept the tower. What once looked strange started to feel unique, then iconic. Visitors came to see it. Photographs spread around the world. And gradually, the Eiffel Tower became something else. Not a mistake, but a symbol of Paris, of progress, of transformation. The same structure that once caused outrage became the heart of the city. Today, Paris is one of the most recognized cities on earth. Wide, elegant boulevards stretch across the city. Cafes line the streets. Lights reflect beautifully at night. The skyline feels open, balanced, designed. Millions of people visit every year. They walk the same streets, stand beneath the Eiffel Tower, and experience a city that feels timeless. But what most people don't realize is how much had to change to make this possible. Paris wasn't always beautiful. It wasn't always clean. It wasn't always admired. It was once crowded, chaotic, and difficult to live in. But through transformation, through bold decisions, and through time, it became something else entirely. From narrow medieval streets to wide modern boulevards, from darkness to light, Paris didn't just grow. It was completely reborn. Follow for more city transformations.